Hello and welcome to the TMC Newsroom. My name is Rich Tehrani. Thanks so much for watching us today. We are at the Gaylord National Hotel just outside of Washington, D.C. On our program today is Glenn Katz, who is the President and the Chief Operating Officer of SpaceNet. Glenn, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
So could you give us an overview, please, of your company?
Sure. SpaceNet is a company that's been around really for over 28 years. Most people label us, and have labeled us in the past, as a satellite communications company. But the reality is SpaceNet is really a managed network service company. It just over the last 25 of those 28 years, we've done it mostly with satellite. And no, I'm being serious in a sense. About 3 or 4 years ago, a big portion of SpaceNet's business is the enterprise communication space. These are retail customers, financial customers, lottery providers, etc., who would use satellite for typical mission-critical applications. Over time, as you well know, these applications expand in their needs. They have higher throughput. They need low latency types of links. So how do you address that as a, quote, branded satellite communications company? Well, you don't try to beat them, you try to join them. So about 3 or 4 years ago, we saw this trend, and this is a trend here domestically in the United States, where what was a growing market of 8 to 10% a year, call it VSAT or satellite communication services, is flat to starting to decline. So 3 or 4 years ago we looked at that and we said, you know, what we really are is a managed network service provider, which means I have the operational facilities, the program management, the network engineering, I've got the installation type of facilities that I need and the people for that type of activities. The only thing I was lacking was connectivity to the terrestrial network. So we spent a fair amount of time creating a bunch of partners, and we moved into this space which is really not dominated by any one player. And I'm talking about the retail enterprise space where 3 or 4 years ago, CIOs of large multi-billion-dollar retail corporations would trust their mission-critical applications to be run with a VPN over the internet via, let's say, a DSL or a cable type of line. Very interesting market, very interesting combination of requirements. So we moved into that space. And we first went back to our existing customers. It's the easiest way to get into this space. And we said, look, we understand your applications are starting to push you over to low latency, high bandwidth type of applications that need high bandwidth types of connectivity. But you still have applications that are very, very good over satellite. Multicast, downloading digital signage for advertising, broadcasting software updates to all of your application servers that are in the stores. So why don't we come with you? We will come to you with a value proposal that says, look, keep your satellite. We'll use it as a hybrid network. It can be a backup for DSL or cable or whatever form of terrestrial that you want. And we'll take a box, a management box, and we'll put it in your location, and we'll manage your entire location. If the primary form of communication goes down, we'll switch you to satellite. If we need to do a hybrid type of situation where at the same time your primary communications is going over the terrestrial line and you need to download some digital signage or some multicast type of content, we'll handle that, and we'll do it all for you. You have one number to call. If your DSL line goes down, I don't own the DSL line, but right. I certainly can go back to my provider of DSL and manage that call for that end user customer. So we did that. We're very, very successful over the last 3 or 4 years. Some of our biggest name customers, Goodyear, Sunoco, Boston Market, Cumberland Farms, have all converted over to hybrid networks. And then we decided it was time to sort of move out into a brave new market, which is what people call the managed VPN services market.
Right.
And historically we didn't play there, and we've done that in several ways. We again have created partnerships with a lot of telecommunication companies. We are in the process of looking at other companies that maybe we want to acquire to give us a better footprint in this space. But in general, we will go off to retailers or financial institutions, large enterprise customers, and we'll say, look, you know, if you want terrestrial, if you want DSL, and you want 3G, and you need someone to manage all that, come to me. Even if there's no VSAT involved, that's fine. And recently, we actually closed an opportunity, and we're in the process of rolling that out, of 7,500 locations across the United States where there is not a VSAT to be seen. It's DSL as a primary,
Wow.
3G as a backup, Wi-Fi inside of the store, also for PCI compliance, which is a big thing for retailers these days.
Sure.
And we've introduced an ATA into our network appliance, which we happen to call the Prism Pro.
Okay.
I think we have some pictures of that here. And we provide the voice over IP, so we manage all of that.
That's great.
And that's the direction we're going on the commercial side. So we're pretty happy about that. I like that market because it's bigger
Sure.
than what is the standard, or what was the standard VSAT satellite market. There's more companies that are involved in that. It's a market that every 3 years or so they change their technology, so it constantly grows within itself because
Sure.
the technology changes so quickly.
Well, the thirst for bandwidth, right?
The
just
thirst for
does not go
bandwidth. The
away.
thirst for bandwidth. And what's even more interesting that we find is that a lot of these large, multi-billion-dollar Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 companies, the IT departments there are being stressed. They're being stressed by their own corporate saying, look, I need you to reduce your own costs, but yet I need you to provide these types of services. And by the way, I need to get one up on my competitors, so I need these really neat applications. How is that all going to happen? Well, these IT guys, what they're doing is, a lot of them are outsourcing some of the WAN-related type of management that they used to do themselves to companies like SpaceNet.
Right.
And they're focusing mostly on their applications, which will give them their critical edge over their particular competitor, which is great for us. So they're looking for people that have the experience, that know how to do this, and we've been doing it for 28 years. Now that's SpaceNet on the commercial side. SpaceNet does have a very large satellite component to its business, and will continue in that market. But the areas that we see growth on the satellite side, domestically in the US and even internationally, is in the military SATCOM area, otherwise known as DoD, as well as civilian, state, and local government. And that's obviously for applications where terrestrial just doesn't fit. It's
Right.
emergency communications, it's primary communications in theater as an example. And to do that, what we've done recently is we created a subsidiary called SIGS, which stands for SpaceNet Integrated Government Services. We hired someone out of the industry, a person named Susan Miller, to be our CEO of that subsidiary. She has very vast experience in the DoD and in the satellite world. And we decided that to grow in this area as fast as we think we need to grow, we're going to build it up organically from what we can from our satellite services that exist today within SpaceNet, as well as inorganically. And recently, you may have seen some of the press. We acquired a company called RaySat Technologies.
Sure.
Very, very interesting company with some very, very, very unique technology for what's called comms on the move. You know, let's say a vehicle or a Humvee or some other type of communications vehicle that has to move and also have broadband communications anywhere in the world. You know, not just a 3G network here, let's say locally in Washington, D.C. So that's a growing market segment, and we're going aggressively into that space. And I find that to be exciting as well for SpaceNet. So if you look at SpaceNet from what are we doing, where are we going in the future, where do we see the growth, we see it in two main areas: military SATCOM, state and local government for satellite communication services, and we'll call it terrestrial managed services into the enterprise space. Both very healthy markets, both growing markets, and that's going to be our future for the next 3 to 4 to 5 to 10 years.
And it sounds extremely diverse in terms of revenue.
Very diverse in
Right.
terms of revenue and the customer base. And interesting enough, at least on the commercial side, I'm finding that we're competing against competitors that we never ever saw before. You know, in the good old days, it was always us against H&S. Very, very good company, very good competitor. And now we're competing with the likes of AT&T, Verizon,
Sure.
a lot of small
Cable
DSL,
companies,
cable
right,
companies,
DSL.
yeah, Megapath as an example.
Sure.
These type of companies on the commercial space. So it's interesting.
Well, it's also, it shows that convergence never stops.
It never stops.
So now, I mean, satellite is just another way of
Exactly.
getting your connectivity, and it has to merge together with all the other forms, because mission critical communications is becoming part of virtually every business's DNA.
It is, and you mentioned a great point, which I think I failed to mention. A lot of what's driving some of this activity for SpaceNet is the need for 100% availability at a remote location, even at a small convenience store, as an example. always give the example that when gas prices rose, unfortunately for all of us, a typical credit card transaction at the pump can be $60 to $80 to $90. Well, the credit card companies would not allow, let's say, gas stations to store and forward that information. That's normally what they would do. Many convenience stores, many gas stations, small type of retailers would have just dial-up because all they were doing was that point of sales for a few dollars. Well, now that has raised in terms of the amount of dollars being transacted in one particular location, if you're going to provide credit card services, you need to make sure that your location is available 100% of the time. So the only way you could do that, the only way that's physically possible to do that, is with having diverse communications.
Sure.
And if you really want to take it to the next step and say, okay, how do I make that 100% assured that it's diverse, is you need terrestrial and satellite. Because you can have terrestrial from Verizon and terrestrial from AT&T, and if the local loop goes down, you're both down.
That's right.
You can have terrestrial with a 3G component, as an example, and if there's some kind of natural disaster, God forbid, the 3G communications, which is wireless, eventually, as you know, connects to a terrestrial network.
Sure.
So if you want true diversity and true 100% availability, the best way to do that is with some terrestrial type of communications link with satellite as a backup. And we see a lot of that.
Sounds like you're just perfectly positioned for the future.
We are absolutely perfectly positioned for the future. I'm very, very optimistic and confident about the future of SpaceNet in the communication space in this country.
Well, we're excited to have you on the program going forward, and we're thrilled to have you here today, and it was great to meet you.
Thank you.
And good luck with your plans.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate it very much.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.